as well as if I'm over here. Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah, hi to the Zoom people. Great to see you in the distance as well. Okay, so I'll use this as well because I think then that might help, especially people at the back. Thanks so much, Salim, for the introduction and the invitation. It's great to be here, especially after yesterday. So thank you very much for a second opportunity. So, as you can see, I'm talking about academic integrity pedagogy. So what I'm going to talk about today is all about positive approaches to involving everyone in teaching and learning academic integrity. Here's my outline. So I'm going to start with the question, why we need it. And then I'm going to talk through some of the work that I do at Oxford Brookes University and in collaboration with others in relation to making a course, in my research and educational response to minor breaches. I'm going to talk a bit about UDL, Universal Design for Learning, as a means of making academic integrity more inclusive. And I'm also going to talk about inclusive responses to AI. And finally, I'm going to talk about how we make academic integrity everyone's job. Hope that sounds interesting. So let's get started. Here's that question then. And I'd like you to think about that for a moment. Why do we need academic integrity pedagogy for everyone? What's your answer? Anyone like to share? Why do we need it? Excellent answer, thank you. That really is my message today. It is everyone's responsibility. Brilliant answer. I didn't plant that one, so thank you very much. Okay. I'm going to talk about some of the reasons that I think really stand out for why we need that academic integrity pedagogy. I mean, overall, I think we have to recognise that students need opportunities to learn academic integrity skills. They don't just have them, we have to give them opportunities to learn. Definitions of academic integrity vary. So if a student's been at one institution, moves to another, it may not be the same. And they're not obvious. We might think they're obvious because we're specialists, we have a lot of our work and focus in that area, but it's not obvious to all students. And it really needs to be embedded in a teaching and learning approach. It's not something that can just be added on. Oh, to do that, just have a look at this. Is not enough. We need to embed teaching and learning about academic integrity. So it's part of student learning, not an afterthought. And we can't make any assumptions about student skills when they arrive at university. So many students have different prior learning where this hasn't been emphasised. So whatever level they're joining us, in the UK, it's particularly the case that when international students join at postgraduate level, that they haven't been exposed to the kind of academic integrity ability that's needed for that level. So we need to teach them. And so I would argue at any level, students need instruction. And warnings do not suffice. So if an institution just focuses on the breaches and what might happen to you if you don't follow the rules, then this does not suffice. And I'm going to demonstrate some of the reasons why that doesn't suffice a bit later. Another thing that happens with academic integrity is it gets kind of merged with just teaching how to reference, how to format a reference or a citation. Now, of course, those skills are important, but that's not the whole thing about academic integrity. And there's so much more about how students need to approach their assignments and their study. So we need to do more than that. And we just can't expect students to develop these skills through some kind of osmosis, just being in a university environment, you will pick them up. That doesn't happen. We need to give students learning opportunities. Okay, so let's look at where we are right now. And I asked this question, what have COVID and AI done to academic integrity? Now you can see there's a smiley face. I think we do have something to smile about. I wonder if anyone would like to think about why we have something to smile about right now. What have COVID and AI done that we could smile about in terms of academic integrity? Fantastic answer. Yes, exactly. People are much more aware and I would say interested in academic integrity, which is a great thing for us, right? So I've been working in the area of academic integrity nearly 20 years. I tell you, nearly 20 years ago, when I was working with my mentor, Jude Carroll, there was very limited interest in what we were doing. It was considered quite weird and very much an outlier. And then going forward 10 years, so around 2014, I remember talking to Phil Newton, who many of you may know, at the University of Swansea. And with Irene, we were going to present at a conference. And I remember Phil's description of us was we were plagiarism nerds, right? We were just, you know, a weird group of people who were very focused on plagiarism. And now coming forward to 2024, my goodness, what a change. There's so much interest in academic integrity. People attending events, people recognizing the importance of academic integrity because of the shift to online, the surge of use of AI. I was part of a recent panel discussion organized by Times Higher Education. There were 700 people in that panel discussion attending. 700. So, you know, it really feels like there's been a lot of change. And the great thing for us is that people are interested in our work. That's what we need, right? To spread our messages and really have an impact. And there's been lots of other changes. So, drawing on the work of Zena, there have been changes to assessment methods. And we really need to think about what happens to academic integrity when assessment changes, particularly brought to the fore with changes due to COVID, but also AI in recent years. And I think that teaching academic integrity skills and its importance on life has become a greater priority. So the recognition that academic integrity skills aren't just important for the immediate class that a student's doing, but rather thinking about their whole development for how they're going to be in their future job, how they're going to contribute to society. It's just become much more recognized that that's important. What I think is also very positive is there's gradually more attention to educative approaches. So the education, rather than just looking at penalties, warnings, punishment, there's now more attention to education. Also what's going on at the moment is our definitions of academic integrity and how we define academic conduct breaches. It needs updating. If you have any, what we might call silent policies at your university that people are not paying attention to but exist and haven't been changed in recent years, I think that's something to look at. It's something that I work on quite a lot every year, looking at least once a year, do these academic conduct breaches, the way they're defined, do they still work? Is that still the same? And I think monitoring the changes that we go through to sort of recognise what's going on now. How do we define academic integrity, and how do we define abuse? I think it's also been increasingly recognised that both students and staff need more guidance on academic integrity in recent years. So it's really important that we are spreading those messages and ensuring that we're not just trying to help students, but also help staff. Now's the time to act. We have an opportunity with events like this to actually try and engage more people and ensure that we are taking responsibility ourselves, but also sharing responsibility. I also want to argue that there is a really growing need for a more inclusive approach to academic integrity. Now, in my work, I look at what's going on in terms of the breaches, who are perhaps the students who are overrepresented in any academic conduct referrals. What I mean by that is if somebody marking student work finds a possible breach and then refers it to our investigation team, what happens and who are the students that are most represented? And what I found, here's some figures from OBU at Oxford Brookes University, my institution. 15% of our student body are international students, but in terms of referrals, almost double, 28% are international students. And then if we look at ethnicity, Asian students make up 15% of our student body, but 35% of our total referrals. Black students make up 6% of our student body and 13% of total referrals. If you do some quick maths there, you can see almost half of our referrals are Black and Asian students, but they're only 21% of our student body. But that's a serious issue, in my view, that we need to address, mainly through providing more learning opportunities. We need to ensure that every student is actually getting the learning opportunities that they need. Research by Ursula Wingate has pointed out that academic literacy instruction is available for some students, but others miss out. So we need to look at where are students missing out, where are students not getting the opportunities to learn about this. And other research, this is in Australia, Lynch and colleagues, note that sometimes students make poor decisions about academic integrity, perhaps from the pressure that they're under, and especially if they're in a new context. So let's look at the organisations and the guidance that they offer in terms of taking responsibility for a pedagogical approach. I'm on the board of directors of ICAI, that's the International Centre for Academic Integrity. They produced really useful guidance, which is called the Fundamental Values. And very nicely, this conference is using those fundamental values to name each room. So we're, I believe, currently in the honesty form. I mean, yes, but you'll also find courage and respect and responsibility and trust. Which one have I missed out? One. No, I said courage. I've done that. Fairness, that's what I missed out. Okay, which is lovely, a way of really kind of making those fundamental values, putting them into use for this event. I talk a lot in those values about making a culture of academic integrity. And building that culture, we need to educate all members of our institutions. That's an important motto. Now, many people here belong to the European Network for Academic Integrity, ENI. And again, the culture is stressed in this definition that the culture of academic integrity is an organisational spirit and climate. I think that's such a lovely way of defining the culture of academic integrity. So spirit and climate that informs and promotes ethical behaviour. And of course, really support so many institutions. And I have done a lot of collaborations and excellent work, including working with the Faith Project to ensure that there is a growing awareness and responsibility for building cultures of academic integrity. Now, as I work in the UK, I pay a lot of attention to the QAA, that's the Quality Assurance Agency in the UK, who produced an academic integrity charter for the UK that most higher education institutions have signed up to. And the very first thing they say on page 1 is everyone is responsible as part of a whole community approach. I think that's such an important statement. Everyone is responsible. It's not just the people who have a direct role, whose job includes academic integrity in the title. Everyone has a responsibility for academic integrity. So let's think about what a pedagogy for academic integrity for everyone might look like. So I'm drawing first on Jude Carroll as my mentor back in the 2000s. Jude Carroll produced a handbook using the 3 Ds, deterring, detecting, and dealing with. I think she's one of the first people to really look at the importance of deterring academic conduct problems, particularly deterring failures. And working with Erica Morris, she's been stressing a holistic approach, an approach that involves everyone and includes different sorts of work is really important. Some research I did over 10 years ago now, where I interviewed module leaders, so people who were running programs and subject areas, about how they approach academic integrity, how they taught students. And you can see from this quote here that some module leaders and teachers kind of give up any responsibility for academic integrity, feel it's not their role. They've got high expectations of what the students should do, but they don't necessarily feel it's their job to do it. And I contrast this with the wonderful, really inspiring work of Laurie McNeil, who's at the University of British Columbia in Canada. And in her work, she stresses that in their kind of aspirational model of academic integrity, it could be taught on every course in every module, so students are constantly getting that input, support, raising their awareness, etc. And I think that's a wonderful model to follow. But thinking about a course, next thing I'm going to talk about is an academic integrity course that I developed at Oxford Groups. So, Okay. I believe there's a huge number of benefits for us and our institutions, staff and students, to develop an in-house academic integrity course. I would say that because I developed one, but I think it's a really good idea to build on your institution's expertise and knowledge, work together to produce an academic integrity course for students. There's a lot of benefits. It means the institution is in control. So there's nobody else, it's not overseen or decided by any other group of people. The institution is in control. You can use the institution's expertise. Really good benefit is it can fit into the university system, or whatever you're using as your VLE, your virtual learning environment, or might be called, remember this, LMS, your learning management system, depending on whether you're using VLE or LMS. So it can fit into that system. You can design it so that it's just another course on the learning environment. And you can make it a course for every student. You can ensure that every student around the institution has to do that course. It's part of their study. You can monitor completion. So it's really easy to get all the statistics for who's completed. We also, one way that we do that so that any teacher can know whether the student's done the course is the student has to get a certificate of completion, which they generate themselves. So as soon as they finish, they can get their certificate of completion and upload it. So we've got that record as well as being able to see centrally. And then another benefit, we can quite easily update and improve the course because it's in our control. So where something becomes out of date, and that keeps happening with academic integrity, things change, we have that ability. And I think another benefit that I really noticed, so I was leading the authorship of this, I didn't do the whole course myself, I worked with a team, is working with the library, working with digital services, working with other staff members, including teaching staff, to build this course. We really built up our in-house community of practice. It was a really good experience. It did take quite a while, but I think it's a great investment. So if you haven't got an institutional course, I highly recommend developing it. And if you want any further advice, please do get in touch with me. I'd be more than happy to help you. So I'm just going to give you a quick flavour of what our course looks like. So we're doing this on our VLE is Moodle. We're using H5P to develop it. So we've got these sections. The very first one is about understanding academic integrity. So it's very basic introduction. The course is for all students, as I said, but we ensure that it would be simple enough for even a foundation student to be able to follow and be able to do. It's quite interactive. So in that first section, there are things like videos and then a task for students to do. And then there's a part about beginning an assignment. So trying to help students go through the steps, making good academic integrity decisions along the way. And then I said we involved the library. So they really helped with that section on making good reading choices. We recognise the importance of our students were not only writing, but also using their reading for good academic integrity practices. And then last part was about doing their own work. So making decisions to ensure that what they submitted for their assessments was their own work. And a quick look at one of the activities. This was within the doing an assignment and doing their own work last section. So that may be a bit small to see, but thinking about the kinds of things students might do. I don't know about your students, but I think there are still many students who, when you give them a task, go straight to Google, first of all. So that's not a great practice, but you know, here there's some advice that if they do go to Google, then they can only use it as getting a very general idea of working on the assignment. Another one is about asking friends. So it's giving advice about what they can do in terms of asking friends. And I find that's quite a frequent student concern. So am I supposed to work with other students or not? Or what can I do with other students? I always say that it's fine to talk about an assignment with a student. Talking about is just kind of at a very early stage where you're just planning or thinking about the assignment, whereas actual writing shouldn't be shared. So I'm going to turn next to share with you some of my research into inclusive academic integrity and making an educational response to minor breaches. So this was published a couple of years ago in the International Journal for Educational Integrity. I was looking at how we could basically instill academic integrity, inclusive academic integrity in every area. So policies, practice, teaching, support. And what I did is I analysed our main documents to check if they were fully accessible and inclusive. I interviewed key staff in academic integrity roles, and I interviewed students. I can show you a little bit of the interview data, just a quick flavour. And this is where I have a really important critical insight into what's going on for international students in terms of academic integrity. So with a master's student feeling that they should know already, so that they couldn't ask anybody because they feel so bad about not knowing. I think we really have to put ourselves in the position of students. Why don't they ask? What do they feel like this? So we've got to reach out more to students or ensure that they've got learning opportunities and therefore they're not in such a scary position. At the same time, I recognise that some staff tend to stereotype students and say, oh, this group are the most likely ones to have problems. And I'm a bit concerned about that because we shouldn't stereotype anybody and make any sort of assumption. But at the same time, okay, if we've got a group of students who are having more difficulty, then they need more support, more learning opportunities. I'm also looking at inclusion, particularly in terms of specific learning differences or disability. And I was able to interview some students who identified as having dyslexia and get sort of an insight on how they were feeling. So you can see from this student's comment that they felt that having a diagnosis of dyslexia, as well as having an academic conduct referral, so a possible investigation, was really overwhelming for them, really difficult. And this is compounded by evidence from the librarian here that I interviewed, saying that sometimes dyslexic students are scared to come into the library, so feeling they don't belong there or they're not sure what to do, and it's very challenging for them. And an academic conduct investigator told me that from their point of view, they really didn't feel it was fair for these students to be facing investigations. It seemed too much and it kind of messes up their study. And some further issues I want to just highlight that we should be aware that if we provide academic integrity induction, so when students first join, there is a problem that they might miss that session. They might arrive late, especially international students who need a visa. And so they might miss it. And if it's not available later, then those students have missed out. And that's like a problem, I think. And academic integrity instruction may not be individualized, so we may not be taking into account the needs of all our students. There are possibly some issues of place, like as I demonstrated with that student example, some students feeling they should know already. We've got to think of our responses to that. There may be students who don't have time to practice. Another issue, something that I've really tried to work on at Oxford Brookes, is the documents that relate to academic integrity. If we've got documents that are really long, 10 pages, how many students are going to read through every detail? So we need to ensure they're also in an accessible format. So maybe we do need the long document, but we could provide some further guidance to help with that, to make it more accessible. Maybe some bullet points, maybe a summary, maybe a sort of a flow chart to help them navigate. And I also think that really we need academic integrity learning activities all the way throughout students' course. So in the context of the UK, these are some of the influences that we have about ensuring that everything we do is inclusive and accessible. So we have the Equalities Act. I'm sure this and the other documents cited here, you may have an equivalent to that in your system. So we have the Equalities Act, which basically states that universities are required by law to ensure that learning, teaching and assessment promotes inclusive curricula and equal opportunities. If we think of that in terms of academic integrity, we are required by law to ensure that whatever we're doing is not excluding certain students. And quite recently, in this government disability document, there was an explicit statement that all educational resources must be fully accessible. That means whatever a student's learning needs, they must be able to access, understand, and be able to then follow any of the guidance. That's really, really important. We need to think of sometimes different formats for our documents to ensure that no one is disadvantaged. And then we also have an obligation, according to our Office of Students, that oversees all university work, to act on attainment gaps. So if there's a particular group of students with a particular demographic that are getting lower grades, lower degree outcomes than others, we need to act on. There's a lot of focus in the UK on trying to improve attainment gaps for particular ethnic groups. And perhaps that's replicated in your different contexts. It's really a very important area of work, which I think connects a lot to academic integrity. If you think about it, if students have academic conduct problems, if they score lower because of an academic conduct penalty, or they have to repeat a year, or have some additional stress and problems that relate to academic integrity, they're going to come out with a lower degree. And so we need to look at that as well. Now, I adopted this sort of statement about what inclusion is from Liz Thomas and Helen May as a kind of mantra for my work. So all work, all academic and technical work should be accessible, relevant, and engaging for all students. So that means every student needs to be able to understand it. Every student needs to find it relevant so that it relates to their study. And it needs to be interesting, engaging, so that they want to follow it. Okay, so I always do remember the brilliant words from Betty Leask. If you haven't heard of Betty Leask, please look her up in the Australian context. Just as a reminder, if you look at that statement, that it's not enough just to explain the rules to students. Even if you explain them, if the student doesn't understand what to do or can't do it, they're not going to be able to. So that really demonstrates that a warning about academic conduct penalties is not going to work on its own. You have to ensure there's learning. Mark Smith and colleagues highlight that there should be a pedagogical response, and NI as well recommend that minor offences should, any outcomes should emphasise further learning. So I take that as endorsement for a pedagogical, educational approach to minor breaches. And this is what I've done at Oxford Brookes. So on the basis of my findings about inclusion in academic integrity, I was able to change the what happened to students if they were found with a minor breach. What you can see here on the left is basically the standard process that if a marker, so someone marking work, finds a potential breach, they will refer it to an investigative team. That investigative team used to just have two options, either no case, so they don't think there is an actual problem, or they investigate and then there's a possible penalty. But now what happens is if the student has a first minor breach in their first year of study, whichever year they join the university at, then they don't have any penalty. They go by an educational route, which has two compulsory stages of educational training. The first is self-study online, and the second is in a small group with the academic development team. And that has had fantastic effect. There's also an optional stage, but the crucial thing is making that training compulsory. We used to have some options for students, or you could do this, but of course, if it's optional, the take-up will be low. If you make it compulsory, so students don't get their grades till they've done it, then this makes a big difference. And we've had no cases since students, no repeat cases for students who followed the educational route. Let's move on to talking about universal design for learning and inclusive teaching resources. How am I doing for time, by the way? So, how many? 50. Thank you. Okay, so universal design for learning looks a bit like this. There's a lot on your screen there, but you can see there's one bit that I have circled, which is called comprehension. I think that the basis, the most important bit for academic integrity is comprehension. Universal design for learning is a great approach if you want to bring in more inclusion and accessibility into your teaching, but definitely for academic integrity. So comprehension is under the what of learning. Let's look at that in a bit more detail, a bit larger. So it has 4 checkpoints: activate or supply background knowledge, highlight patterns, guide information processing, maximize transfer. I'm going to show you how I incorporated that in a course. But before I get on to that, I'm going to talk a little bit about this project that I led, funded by UAA, the Quality Assurance Agency, to generate resources. So there were 4 institutions involved, and we developed a few things. I'll just flick through some of those. We developed a student academic integrity champion model. So we had focus groups, we involved students, we worked on kind of an 8-stage model to incorporate academic integrity champions. And then we developed a range of teaching resources. All of these are open access and anyone can use via the website. You'll be able to see the link on the slides. A range of teaching resources where we emphasised inclusion and accessibility. So we offer these in different formats, and we really thought through how we develop them to ensure that every student would be able to use them. And we also made teaching resources for staff, working with school departments checklist to try and help staff to develop academic integrity resources that are fully inclusive. And we developed videos. Have you made any videos with students? Anyone? Yes, I know, definitely seen that. Videos are such a great thing to do right now with students. And these are some of our most popular resources. They were also popular to make, and students had a lot of fun. And it was great to see how they really use their creativity and different way of looking at academic integrity. So I absolutely recommend that. Make sure the videos are short though. Yes, I think, well, some people would say 30 seconds is a good length, but 1 to 3 minutes is what we went for these videos. Now I'm going to talk briefly about my inclusive educational response to student use of artificial intelligence. And I recently published in this volume called Using Generative AI Effectively in Higher Education. Here's a quote from my chapter. As Gen AI becomes more prevalent, universities must provide positive guidance to students on its appropriate use and address digital inequity concerns. So concerns that some students are able to use Gen AI to a great extent, others may be disadvantaged. So we need to address that. So looking at transparency for a moment, it's really important in any approach to artificial intelligence to ensure that there's transparency. Because this relates to trust and is an expected element of academic integrity. And artificial intelligence needs to be acknowledged. It's really important that students declare their use, show their use. But I'm still mindful, as Christian highlighted, that some people, some researchers, may not want to declare use of AI due to fear of being exposed to criticism. But what can we do about that? Well, I'm really proud of this. This is something we managed to put in place at the beginning of 2023. So only a couple of months after ChatGPT 3 was launched, we have a declaration form in place at my institution, and we ensured that it was positive. So we're trying to encourage students to declare their use. We made it easy to find. We tried to make put some clear advice. This is not the whole form, but the form is very short. And we kept it very simple. We basically just asked what tool are you using and how. And just highlighting there, something that might not make much sense, but basically, we're trying to address the point that students who have some particular learning needs, so if they receive DSA, that's Disabled Student Allowance, or they have an ISP, that's Inclusive Support Plan, they don't need to declare AI that aligns with that plan. In other words, they've already got an agreement to use AI because, of course, AI has merged so much with assistive technology. Grammarly is now considered AI. So students don't have to declare that. They do need to declare any use that doesn't align with their plan that's already in place. So I'm going to share here a little bit of data with you. So I'm in the happy position of being able to see all the data that comes in about student declarations. And this was in the first iteration from February to August last year. You can see the largest percentage was for SPAG, which is spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So students were using it for proofreading and speculating. So I analysed that to help me make a course. But just show you very briefly, like I can see I've only got 5 minutes now, some of the examples, which were very insightful to see exactly what students were doing with AI and what their learning needs were. So I followed a process of analysing the first 500 declarations as my evidence base. I applied universal design for learning. I incorporated a universally understood symbol, the traffic light, and I developed a course, which I've since been evaluating. And so those are the checkpoints, which I've already shared with you from universal design for learning. I'm also in the happy position of having a son who is an animator, so he does my designs much better than I could. So here's a student driving an integrity car. Of course, it's a Mini because we're in Oxford. Minis are still made in Oxford. Driving the integrity car along University Street and coming to a traffic light. And then I tried to get students to associate the traffic lights with the universal sort of response to that: stop, check, go, and think about academic integrity in terms of use of artificial intelligence. So introduction to this course, basically following through, activate and supply knowledge. Why do they need to know about, have some guidance about ethical decision making with artificial intelligence? And then here's some traffic lights. So stop, inappropriate use, check, possibly risky use, and go with appropriate use. And I made a table in line with the traffic light colours, but also for anyone for whom colours are not so clear, I incorporated symbols, so tick, question mark, and cross. And I talked through different academic integrity concepts like authorship, like transparency, and planning. The table is much longer. This is just the top of it to give you a sense of what that looks like. And then I made an exercise to maximise transfer. So we made an exercise for students to test out once they've gone through the original table to see what they felt. And with each question, they get feedback on their answer. Currently, I'm evaluating and trying to improve the course. I think I probably don't have time to go through all of this, but I'll just show you. I've been looking at accessibility, trying to see what students say about that. Is it fully accessible? That point about I can't read it on the iPad, we have addressed because I recognise that many students use smaller screens for accessing a lot of their learning, so we have developed that. Some of the things that students have said, they really like the traffic lights, so that's been useful. And you know, even a student who says I haven't learned anything new, but I'm more confident, I'm really happy with that outcome, because that was one of the main things. I want to try and reduce anxiety about artificial intelligence. I've been working with my student academic integrity champion, who's giving me some feedback as well. And I won't go through all of that. I will show you that they highlighted some of the problem practices, some of the concerns of what may be going on. I'm quite worried about some of the things they said. So students may be still putting assignment questions into an artificial intelligence tool and using the output. But here are their suggestions: engaging students more, ensuring that they do this course possibly more than once. We've also been trying to do the course in a class setting, so students discuss and then feedback to the tutor with any further questions. So here's a few takeaways from today. I think academic integrity pedagogy needs to involve a holistic approach. I recommend the in-house course. Hopefully you might like to take up that idea. I really recommend educational responses to minor breaches. I think it's important to have some teaching to support ethical use of AI and to work with students. I have learned so much from working with students in the area of academic integrity, whether it's with video making or things like getting their feedback into student practices, developing resources, working on policies. And great thing that we're doing at the moment, collaborating and linking up with good practice. I've just got one more thing to share, which is about making academic integrity everyone's job. I don't have time to go through that slide, but please check out Amanda Mackenzie's blog on integrity matters. Also, of course, the work of Sarah Eaton about the importance of having an academic integrity office. I really do want to share this with you. I am passionate about the International Day of Action for Academic Integrity, which this year is on the 16th of October. Please join us. We have such an exciting theme. All hands on deck, making academic integrity everyone's job. Or, herkes iş başına. Akademik dürüstlüğü herkesin işi haline getirmek. We have some exciting activities, staying calm in choppy waters, guidance for students, and we're also developing a nautical map of academic integrity responsibilities. We've got lots of live events. We'll be doing 15 hours again of live sessions all day, and it's free online. Please join us. Everyone is welcome. Final question for you in case you want to take them away. And I probably should just click through my references so they're recorded as well. Thank you very much.